I'm 22 now, but for most of my teenage years, I thought my mom was dying. I grew up in a small town, raised by a single mother who was always fragile. At least that's what she told everyone. She had what she called an invisible illness. Some days she could barely get out of bed. Other days she was fine enough to cook, clean, even go shopping, but only for short bursts, and always with a dramatic story about how much it exhausted her afterward. When I was 12, she sat me down and told me she had a rare autoimmune disorder that would eventually kill her. I don't remember the exact name she used, some complicated thing I never bothered to Google back then. I just believed her. She cried when she told me, made me promise to be strong, said we were a team now, just her and me against the world. From that moment on, I became her little caretaker. I cooked dinner, kept the house clean, skipped after-school clubs to drive her to appointments once I got my license. She made me feel like a hero, like she needed me more than anyone else ever could, and I held on to that feeling like my life depended on it. She had dozens of medications in the bathroom cabinet, took pills at weird hours, had oxygen tanks delivered once. She had specialist appointments in the next city over every few months. We even had a wheelchair in the garage, though she only used it when we went on long trips or when someone from church came over to visit. Everyone pitied her, everyone admired me. For a while I did too, but something started to shift when I went off to college. Whenever I'd come home for breaks, she'd complain that I was gone too long. She'd suddenly have a flare-up right before I was supposed to leave again. Once, she even ended up in the hospital overnight because of exhaustion. I rushed back home, terrified, but when I got there, she looked fine, almost too fine. She was watching TV and laughing with the nurses. I tried not to question it. I told myself she just had good days and bad days. But the older I got, the more cracks I started to see. The medications in the cabinet? Most were either vitamins or expired. The oxygen tanks had never been used, still wrapped in plastic. The wheelchair looked pristine, like it had never touched pavement. And when I finally asked about the name of her illness again, she got defensive, said I was being ungrateful, that I didn't care if she lived or died. That was the first time she truly scared me. After that argument, I backed off. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe I was just tired or stressed or homesick. I tried to be the daughter she wanted, the one who never doubted, never asked questions. But that moment stuck with me. I couldn't unsee it. And once you notice one crack, you start seeing all of them. My mom had been collecting disability benefits for years, claiming she was too ill to work, but there was no medical equipment in the house besides that unused wheelchair, no consistent prescriptions, no specialists I ever met in person, and every time I asked about seeing her medical records, just to help, just to stay informed, she'd fly into a rage. So I started looking in quietly. The first thing I did was check the pill bottle. All the labels were old. Most were supplements you could buy over the counter. A few didn't have her name on them. Fused bottles probably donated or found. I remember staring at, heart pounding, thinking, if it's all fake. I thought about calling her bluff, sitting her down and demanding answers, but instead I made a fake email address. I pretended to be her looking for a second opinion and contacted several doctors. I described her symptoms exactly how she did, down to the supposed immune flares, the fatigue, the hospitalization. I sent fake test results based on what she'd shown me over the years. Every single doctor said the same thing. The symptoms didn't. The diagnosis was vague at best, completely fabricated at worst. That's when I really started to panic, because it meant the past 10 years of my life had been shaped around a lie. She had made me believe she was dying, and I'd believed it so deeply that I turned down scholarships, skipped vacations, even stayed home instead of moving out after high school. I thought I was saving her life, but now I wasn't even sure she was sick at all. Still, part of me clung to the idea that maybe she had some undiagnosed mental illness. Maybe she thought she was sick. Maybe it wasn't malicious. Maybe she needed help, not blame. I wanted to believe that. I really, really did. Until I found the receipts. I found the receipts tucked in the back of her closet, inside an old shoebox that old baby picked. There were dozens of them, printed invoices from online pharmacies, sites that didn't require prescription. Most were for basic things, vitamin packs, sugar pills, even herbal treatments marketed toward fake diseases. One invoice showed a bundle illness kit from a wellness scam site I recognized from. It came with syringes filled with saline and fake medication labels for demonstration purposes. I remember my hands trembling as I looked through them. Some of the packages had been ordered years ago. She'd been planning this, cultivating. She wasn't just delusional, she was faking it, intentionally, manipulative. She'd turned her own daughter into a caregiver and called it love. I didn't cry, not at first. I sat there in her closet, surrounded by old receipts and fake pill bottles, and I felt hollow, like my entire identity had been based on a role I was never meant to play. I'd sacrificed my childhood, my freedom, my future, because I thought my mother needed me to, and she did, just not for the reasons I believed. The next morning I confronted her, not with yelling, not even with anger. I just laid the receipts on the table, one by one, and waited. Her reaction was terrifying. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She smiled. Then she leaned back in her chair and said, "So, what are you going to do now? Tell everyone I lied? Go ahead. No one's going to believe you over a sick old woman. My mom is 45. That moment, more than the years of lies, more than the manipulation, that moment is when I realized she wasn't sick at all. Not physically. She was something much worse. She was a fraud, and she was proud of it." After she said that, after she smiled like she'd won, I didn't respond. I just stared at her. My mother. The woman who used to cry in my arms after pretending to collapse on the kitchen floor. The woman who made me cancel dates, jobs, even one college acceptance because she said she might not live to see my graduation, and here she was, grinning like she was untouchable. I didn't say a word. I just packed a bag and left. At the time, I had nowhere to go except my friend Liam's place. He knew some of the story, how my mom was sick and I'd been taking care of her for years, but I never told him the full picture. Honestly, I hadn't even realized the full picture myself until that night. When I showed up, he could tell something was wrong. I barely got the words out. I broke down, and once I started talking, I couldn't stop. I told him everything about the pills, the faked symptoms, the fake oxygen tanks, the receipts, her reaction, that smug little smile. It all spilled out like poison I'd been holding in for a decade. He didn't question me. He believed me right away. That was the first time in my life I felt seen. Over the next few days, I stayed in Liam's spare room while I tried to figure out what to do next. I didn't go online. I didn't answer her calls. And yes, she did call, over and over. Her voicemails were a mix of guilt-tripping and threats. One minute she was sobbing, saying she couldn't breathe, begging me to come home. The next she was accusing me of betrayal, of abandoning her, in her final months. She even told one of her friends I'd run off with a man and turned against my own mother for a boy. It was all about control. Even from a distance, she was trying to rewrite the narrative. But I wasn't playing along anymore, and that's when I got a message from my aunt. One I hadn't spoken to in almost 5 years. It said, "I believe you. Call me when you're ready. There's more you don't know." I stared at that message from my aunt, my mom's older sister, for what felt like an hour. I hadn't seen her since I was 17. Back then, I thought she was just cold, distant. She stopped coming to our house out of nowhere, and I remember asking my mom why. My mom told me she was jealous of our bond. She said Aunt Carol couldn't handle the fact that it was the one Mom relied on now, not her, that she was bitter and toxic. I believed it. Why wouldn't I? I'd never heard another side of the story. So when that message came in, "I believe you. Call me when you're ready. There's more you don't know." I sat frozen. All I could think was, what more could there be? I waited until Liam left for work the next morning. I wanted privacy. I didn't know what I was about to open, and something in my gut told me it was going to be bad. When I called Aunt Carol, she picked up on the first ring. Her voice cracked immediately. I could tell she'd been waiting for this, for years. She didn't hesitate. She just said, "I knew one day you'd figure it out. I'm so sorry it had to be like this." Then she told me the truth. My mom had been pulling this sick, manipulative act long before I was ever born. Aunt Carol said the first time she pretended to be ill was in her early 20s, back when she was dating some guy who was on the verge of leaving her. She told him she had a tumor, a benign one at first. When he still started pulling away, she upgraded it to early-stage cancer. He proposed to her 2 weeks later. She never had cancer, and she never told him the truth. Instead, she faked treatments, shaved patches of her own hair, even fainted in public once to make it seem real. Eventually, he found out, left her. But instead of reflecting, my mom doubled down. That's when the pattern started. It was always the same. Find someone who could take care of her, make them believe she was sick or broken, then use that control to keep them tethered. Aunt Carol said it was like watching someone write a script for their life, and she played the victim so well, no one questioned it. Then I was born. My mom didn't talk much about my dad growing up. She said he was a one-night stand, that he didn't care. But Carol told me something different. My dad had actually been involved for the first year, wanted to be part of my life, but my mom pushed him out, told him she had postpartum complications, that the baby, me, needed special care, that he was stressing her out and making her sicker. He offered to take me, full custody. He even got a lawyer. But my mom threatened to accuse him of abuse. Carol didn't know what was true and what wasn't, but she said he walked away, said he didn't want to fight someone that unstable. I was shocked, silent, just taking it all in. Then came the part that knocked the air out of my lungs. Carol said that when I was 9, she tried to get custody. She had grown too suspicious, saw the way I was always doing chores, skipping parties, never allowed to sleep over at anyone's house. I was my mom's shadow, her little emotional support doll. Carol reported her. CPS came to our house. I vaguely remember it. A woman came. I asked questions about my mom. I said she was sick, but strong. I told her I loved helping her. I even showed her where Mom kept her meds. I thought I was being helpful. Apparently, I was convincing. The case was closed in less than 2 weeks. My mom found out it was Carol who made the call. She lost her mind. Cut her out of our lives completely. Told everyone Carol had tried to steal me and poison me against her. She made me promise never to speak to her again. I remembered that fight. I thought Carol was the villain. But now, years later, with the truth spilling out of the phone like water from a broken dam, I finally saw it for what it was. Someone trying to save me. I asked Carol why she never tried again, why she didn't come back. Her voice broke. She said, "Because I watched your mom break you, slowly, and I was scared that if I pushed too hard, she'd break you for good." We both cried after that. After I hung up the phone with Aunt Carol, I just sat there staring at nothing. 10 years of lies. A stolen childhood, a dad I never knew, scared away, and an aunt who tried to save me, who actually tried, while I worshipped the woman who'd orchestrated the entire mess like a puppet master. I thought I'd feel angry. I thought rage would bubble up and drive me to do something wild, maybe even reckless. But I didn't feel rage. I felt cold, a kind of clarity I've never felt before, like something inside me finally snapped, not in a destructive way, but in a clear, focused way. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg her for answers she'd never give. I was going to expose her. So I started gathering everything. I went back to the house while she was at one of her appointments. I knew she had a standing 11 a.m. coffee date at a cafe downtown with one of her church friends, where she often claimed to be getting an infusion treatment. I had about an hour. I brought a duffel bag. I grabbed every fake medical receipt, the unused oxygen tank, the sealed saline syringes. I opened every drawer, every closet. I took pictures of her pill bottles, the empty test kits, even the untouched wheelchairs with factory stickers still on them. Then I went into the attic. What I found made me nauseous. She had boxes, labeled props. Inside, medical wristbands, fake IV bags, even blood bags labeled for theatrical use. One folder had handwritten scripts, stories she'd told people over the years. Story for PTA fundraiser, church prayer group diagnosis, hospital parking excuse. She had scripts. It wasn't a performance. It was a career. She had played everyone, family, friends, her job, which she quit due to her condition, even her pastor. And she wasn't just faking illness. She was building an identity around it. People loved her for being strong and brave. They admired her. I used to think I admired her too. I emailed everything to myself. I made copies, uploaded it all to a cloud drive with 2-factor authentication. I wasn't about to let this disappear. Then I contacted someone who might actually care, our church's community outreach director. My mom had been collecting financial help from them for years. Charity money, meal deliveries, even a free trip to a wellness retreat in Colorado for end-stage comfort. I told her to meet me in person. I didn't give details, just said it was about my mom and that it was serious. She agreed. When we met, I told her, showed her. Her hands were shaking as she flipped through the printed photos. She didn't say much, just kept muttering, "Oh my God," over and over. Then she told me something I didn't expect. The church had raised money for almost $20,000 from various donations. People gave up their Christmas gifts, donated bonuses, even took shifts at the local bakery to support the dying. I felt sick. She said she would bring it to the board, that this was criminal, fraud. She looked stunned, betrayed, but also furious. I told her I wasn't doing this for revenge. I told her I was doing it because I needed it to stop. The lies, the manipulation, the story. Because the truth is, I don't even know who I am outside of her. My entire personality was shaped around being her support system, her caretaker, her miracle daughter. But I'm not that. I'm a grown woman now, and I want my life back. It didn't take long. Less than a week after I met with the outreach director, the church board launched an internal audit. Quiet at first. Private. They wanted to be careful, respectful. Some of them had known my mom for years. A few had even prayed over her hospital bed more than once. She'd really sold it. But once they started asking questions, real ones, things unraveled fast. They reached out to the clinic she claimed had been treating her for years. No records, no patient history, no billing. The retreat center in Colorado? She'd never actually gone. She posted old vacation photos from a trip we took when I was 14 and used them as recovery updates. Everything was fabricated. Then came the kicker. The church accountant found receipts showing the $20,000 in raised donations had been transferred to a private checking account, one listed under my name. My mother had opened it years ago, a joint account with my name on it. I had no idea it existed. She'd used my identity, claimed it was for my future, if anything happened to her. But really, she'd funneled donation money through it so she could avoid taxes or questions. She used it to buy herself expensive skincare, electronics, and those wellness kits she staged her props with. That's when it turned criminal. The church couldn't. And once the outreach director saw my name tied to the account, she called me. She apologized through tears, said I needed to speak to someone higher up. She was worried this would become a legal mess. I could get pulled in if I didn't protect myself. That same afternoon, I got a call from a local reporter. I don't know who tipped her off. Maybe someone on. Maybe one of my mom's friends finally put two and two together. The reporter had heard whispers. She was doing a story on charity fraud in small towns and had been given my mom's name. I told her I'd talk, off the record. We met in a coffee shop on the edge of town. I brought a binder of everything I'd gathered. The fake prescriptions, the receipts, the scripts, the photos. I told her everything. I wasn't looking for revenge. I just wanted it on record somewhere that it was real, that I wasn't crazy. She didn't promise to publish, but she listened, and a few days later, the article dropped. It wasn't just in the local paper. It hit social media like wildfire. The headline read, "Sick for Sympathy. Small-town hero mom accused of faking illness, pocketing donations." They didn't use my name, but everyone figured it out. People knew I was her daughter. My phone blew up within hours. Friends, former teachers, neighbors, people I hadn't heard from in years. Some said they were sorry. Some said they always had a weird feeling about her. Some didn't believe it at all. And then there were the messages from her friends, her defenders. They were the worst. They said I was cruel, that I was heartless, that no real daughter would do something like this. That if she did fake it, she must have had a good reason. She didn't. She faked it because it gave her power, and I gave up everything to keep her propped up in that fantasy. But the worst moment wasn't the article. It wasn't the fallout. It was the voicemail I got from my mother that night. She was sobbing, her voice shaking, not because she felt guilty, but because she'd been caught. And in that moment, for the first time in 22 years, I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt free. The article changed everything. My mom stopped calling, maybe out of shame, maybe out of strategy. For all her dramatics, she wasn't stupid. She knew she'd crossed the line from manipulation into something that could land her in actual legal trouble. And when the church started discussing where to press charges, she went completely silent. I thought that would be the end of it. But then, 2 days after the article dropped, I got a Facebook message from a man I didn't recognize. No mutual friends, just a name. David K. He said, "I read the article. I think I'm your father. I've been waiting 22 years to say that." My heart stopped. It was like reading someone else's story. My breath caught in my throat. I reread the message 5 times before I could even blink. For a moment, I thought it was a prank, or worse, someone looking to take advantage of me now that my story was public. But something about his message felt still, like the eye of a storm. No drama, no desperation, just quiet, heavy honesty. So I wrote back. I kept it short, cautious. I asked him how he knew. I asked if he could prove it. He replied within minutes. He said he'd been in contact with my aunt, Carol, ever since I was a baby. That he used to send birthday cards and gifts, but they were never passed on. That he tried to go to court once, but the process got shut down when my mom made allegations against him, claims that scared him into backing off. He said he'd kept quiet because he didn't want to cause trauma. That when I turned 18, he debated reaching out, convinced himself I was better off not knowing who he was. Until the article. He said reading it made his hands shake because it confirmed what he had always feared, that he'd left me with someone who built her life on lies. I didn't respond right away. I sat with it, for hours. Then I called Carol. Her voice caught when I said his name. She didn't deny it. She told me everything. Said David had been kind, patient, genuinely wanted to be a father. But when he and my mom split, and he tried to stay involved, my mom destroyed him, accused him of stressing her into a medical collapse, said she couldn't be around him without risking her health. Then she told everyone, including me, that he left us. Carol said she felt guilty every single day for not fighting harder. At this point, I didn't know what I felt. I was numb, but also curious. So I said yes to meeting him. We agreed on neutral ground, a small cafe halfway between our towns. Carol came with me. I was shaking the entire drive. My stomach was in knots, my palms sweaty. What do you say to the person who was supposed to raise you? When I walked in, I recognized him instantly. Same jawline. Same eyes. He stood up the moment he saw me and didn't try to hug me. He just smiled, a little sad, a little stunned. I think we both were. We sat down and we talked about everything. He told me stories I never knew, showed me old photos of me as a baby, ones I'd never seen, told me how he almost got arrested showing up to my kindergarten once with a backpack full of toys, because my mom told the school he was a threat. I told him what it was like growing up in her shadow, how I used to believe she was dying every year, how I became her caretaker by the time I was 13. How I didn't realize I'd been groomed to stay small until I escaped. He didn't cry, but I did. We didn't fix everything in one coffee. You don't rewrite 22 years in 90 minutes. But we made a beginning. I asked him if he ever regretted walking away. He said yes, every single day. But then he looked at me, like really looked, and said, "But I don't regret this moment, because you made it through all of it, and you found your way here anyway." And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a father. I knew the silence wouldn't last forever. When people like my mom lose control of the story, they don't disappear quietly. They wait. They study your next move. And when they strike, it's not random. It's calculated. 2 weeks after the article dropped, just when I thought the worst was over, she made her move. It started with a Facebook post. A long, dramatic monologue, black and white photo of her on the couch, looking frail, pale, and pitiful. The caption read, "I never wanted to tell my truth like this. But my daughter has been manipulated, brainwashed, turned against me by people who never cared about our family. All I ever did was love her, and now she's trying to ruin me." Then she went on to claim that I had fabricated evidence to shame her publicly. She called the article libelous, said I'd conspired with estranged relatives to attack her for money and attention. She even suggested that I was mentally unwell, and hinted that I might be experiencing a psychological break from childhood trauma. I read it 3 times, jaw clenched, fists curled, heart pounding, and then I saw the comments. Hundreds of them, some from her old church friends, calling her brave, others from complete strangers, tagging news outlets. A few people outright threatening in the comments, saying I should be ashamed of myself, saying I should be sued, institutionalized, even arrested. She had twisted the story, turned herself from the con artist into the victim again. But that wasn't the worst part. That came 2 days later when I got a letter, hand-delivered a courier. It was from a lawyer. She was suing me, defamation distress. My mom was trying to take to court for. She wanted me to take down every photo, every document, every quote from her script. She wanted an apology published in the same newspaper. She wanted damages, $50,000. I felt like I was going to. I called Carol first, then the reporter, then a lawyer of my own, and thank God I had everything back. Every email, every recording, the fake accounts, the props, the messages from people she lied to, even her old scripts, with her handwriting and her name on them. The reporter connected me with a pro bono attorney who'd helped other whistleblowers. He read through everything and said what I didn't expect to hear. "You have an airtight case. If anything, you could countersue." I didn't want to. I didn't want this to be a war. But the woman who raised me, the one who made me believe she was dying for half my life, had now decided she'd rather see me crushed in court than admit what she'd done, and I wasn't going to let her, so I filed a response. My lawyer made it clear, not only was I going to fight this, I was prepared to bring even more evidence to light, including testimony from her ex-friends, doctors she lied to, and donation recipients who'd been deceived. And suddenly, she went quiet again, like someone had blown out a candle. The lawsuit didn't move forward. Her lawyer ghosted mine. No response. No court date. She'd folded, but not because she gave up. No, because she was planning her next move, and it came through a single message from a new, unfamiliar Instagram account with no followers. "You think this is over? You have no idea what I'm capable of." She hadn't signed it, but I knew it was her. I always know when it's her. I didn't respond to the message, not because I wasn't afraid. I was, but because fear is what she wanted. That anonymous message was just another one of her games, another way to worm her way back into the center of my life. She didn't have the law on her side. She didn't have the truth. So she resorted to what she knew best: threats, manipulation, shadows. But this time I didn't flinch. Instead, I screenshotted the message, forwarded it to my lawyer, and then blocked the account. That was the last time I ever saw or heard from her directly. The fallout left a mess. Some people still believed her. Some didn't know what to think, but most just got tired of the drama. The article eventually faded into the background. New scandals, new stories, new gossip took its place. But the damage that didn't. It took months to start feeling a person again. For so long, I didn't know who I was without her illness looming over me. I'd lived my life as a daughter, nurse, prisoner, all while thinking I was doing the noble thing. That if I just loved hard enough, if I sacrificed long enough, something would change. But people like her don't change. They just adapt, find new angles, new victims. And when you finally stop feeding their story, they find someone else who will. I don't hate her. Not anymore. I grieved the mother I thought I had. I buried that version of her in my mind. And now, I think of her as a character. A tragic one. Talented, yes. Manipulative. Brilliant even in how she pulled it off for so long. But ultimately hollow. A woman who built her entire life around a lie because she couldn't bear to be ordinary. And me? I moved in with Carol for a while. David, my father, helped me find a job. Not out of pity, but because he wanted me to see what it felt like to earn something without being manipulated. We're taking it slow. Building a relationship from scratch. It's awkward. It's messy. But it's real. I started therapy. I joined a support group for adult survivors of narcissistic parents. And slowly, I'm learning how to live without guilt. I applied for my own apartment last week. Just a studio. Nothing special. But it's mine. No pill bottles on the counter. No fake oxygen tanks. No scripts taped to the fridge. Just silence. And peace. I think that's what healing really is. Choosing peace even when you know chaos is just a message away. I don't know if she'll ever try to contact me again, but I do know that this time, I'll be ready. And if anyone reading this has ever felt that weird twist in your gut, the one that says something's off, even when everyone tells you it's not, listen to it. That voice saved me. This is the end of her story in my life, but it's the beginning of mine.